Welcome back. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, she was in Belfast, Northern Ireland today, hours before arrival. Police intercepted an attempt by a splinter group of the Irish Republican Army to transport a bomb in Londonderry, the country's second largest city. Police declined to speculate on a target. Now, tensions, they've been bubbling to the surface there. And rioting occurred on the eve of her visit, one of her last as Secretary of State. Now, we here at RFL, we closely followed the career of Secretary Clinton, and I won't lie, she's been great to the program since the very beginning. She was even here for the very birth of our station. She cut the ribbon, in fact, on the launch of this set. So as her career at the State Department does come to a close, we're looking back at her life in the public eye, at least to this point, and then looking ahead at what might come next.
What makes Hillary Hillary is strength, toughness, very strong streak of principle. What makes all of that kind of bearable for the rest of us is when you get to know her, really incredible humor and humanity. And that's what makes people not just like her, but love her.
I believe that what makes Hillary Hillary is something that just few leaders in the world have, and this is the inner compass and a deep understanding of right and wrong. And this is what makes Hillary a leader.
In every place she goes, she reaches out to people, she has a smile, she's friendly, and yet beneath that friendship is a person of very firm convictions.
You know when Hillary's in the room. I mean, she is highly personable, she's real. If I may, she's a people's secretary.
I can tell you, I don't think we've heard the last of Hillary Clinton.
Well, if you thought that looked like a campaign ad for Hillary 2016, trust me, you're not alone. It was actually, though, part of a farewell tribute video put together by the Sabin Center for Middle East Policy. Truth is, if she did run for president, she could have a pretty good chance of winning. She's got a favorability rating of 66%. That's a lifetime high, by the way. And 57% of Americans say they'd support a Clinton candidacy. That according to the latest Washington Post ABC News poll that came out this week. And in hypothetical 2016 matchups, she blows the competition out of the water. But the question is, how exactly did she get to where she is now? Again, for those with not too distant memories, she went from being a first lady who was viewed with skepticism, especially when her husband put her in charge of a widely criticized task force on national health care reform, to a somewhat sympathetic figure trying to weather the Lewinsky scandal, then to a Senate candidate regarded by many in New York as a carpetbagger at the beginning of it, to then a well-liked statesman and even a popular presidential candidate, as we know, who led in opinion polls for the first half of 2007, but we all know how that turned out. But once she became Secretary of State, you could argue she really seemed to find her niche, becoming an almost venerated figure held in high regard across both party lines. Question is, how did she go from there to here, and also what made the future hold? Well, joining us now to talk about the genesis of Hillary Clinton is Azi Paybarah. He's a political reporter for Capital New York, and he knows the New York political scene just about as well as anybody. Azi, I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
You know, I laugh maybe outside of New York and maybe even in New York with people who have shorter memories. The Hillary that's going to be leaving the State Department soon, to all the accolades and near universal love, the idea that she got there from where she was in relatively in political lifetimes, pretty short period of time, is almost amazing, isn't it?
Well, they say in politics a week is a lifetime, and she spent 4 years working in the administration, so I guess she's had plenty of time to sort of rehabilitate herself after what some people thought was a less than perfect campaign for the presidency. But your introduction sort of hit the nail on the head. There was a time where people thought of her as possibly too divisive, and that left an opening for somebody like Barack Obama.
You know, I used to hate, Azi, when people wouldn't even let the election end here before they forecast the next 4 years. Right. But the truth of the matter is, sooner and sooner, you got to not only get out to New Hampshire, you got to get it out to Ohio, you got to set up your bona fides here. It seems already that if she decides to run in 2016, it's going to clear a lot of the field. And it also seems that the administration owes both her husband and her something for the first 4 years. Clear to say she's definitely the prohibitive favorite if, in fact, she decides to run?
It's hard to imagine somebody like Andrew Cuomo getting into the race if there's a Hillary Clinton candidacy. They'll both be drawing a lot of support from New York, and especially from the major Democratic, donor base, Democratic operatives. They seem to be occupying a lot of similar institutional space.
And also she comes in with a lot of goodwill, where she, for whatever reason, is viewed now much more as a unifying force than what really dogged her from the beginning, that she was such a divisive figure, that she was the greatest fundraising tool for Republicans coast to coast. You talk even anecdotally to elected Republicans on and off camera, they don't have a bad word to say about her, where they couldn't go a sentence if you asked them what the weather was without dumping on Hillary Clinton 10 years ago. It's interesting how she's built up so much equity on the other side of the aisle.
Well, when Republicans were really at the height of pointing to Hillary Clinton as someone to be feared or at least defeated in the polls, this was before the Tea Party. This was before Obama. This was before a lot of the things that we saw recently that really demonstrate how divided this country can be. I mean, if there's a Republican who's pointing to Hillary's handling of the health care issue in her husband's administration, that seems almost a lifetime ago compared to the healthcare debate we had over Obamacare. So what's happened since her first entry into the national stage and possibly her first missteps have been overshadowed by a completely different sort of landscape that we've seen.
What's your gut say? I always say the thing that would, I didn't think she was a reluctant candidate, but I really believe, maybe more than others, that she was a little conflicted. I think she liked the Senate, and she certainly knew firsthand what it takes to run for president. I thought she was all in when she got in, but I think she wrestled the decision maybe more than some people believed in the beginning. If she really does run, would you argue that probably the biggest impetus will be that her husband's going to be pushing her incessantly for the next couple of years to get into this thing?
I don't presume to know the conversations between Bill and Hillary. Few people understand truly that dynamic right there. But I think it's clear that Bill Clinton would be incredibly supportive if Hillary ran.
Thank you very much. I appreciate a few minutes.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I want to start with you, Gian-Carlo. You were saying in the break here, you weren't president of the fan club, certainly, for Hillary Clinton when she left the White House then as First Lady. But you saw what I saw, the evolution in New York State from Republicans who were skeptical, to put it politely, with carpetbagger and everything else, that were some of her biggest defenders when she left in the state of New York.
Look, on policy issues, I probably don't agree with Hillary Clinton on much, but I have to tell you, her evolution, as you said, from First Lady to a serious-minded, tough, hardworking, trustworthy senator for New York was remarkable, and she's done a fantastic job as Secretary of State. I will concede that. She is a formidable person and a great public servant.
Dom, you saw it. You covered her as well here. I don't remember as many people who, in 10 years' time, have such a different public perception, that we're always in the public eye, as she does. Everybody thinks she's got the chops, that she's not just the spouse of. You don't hear that anymore. Nobody thinks that she's a wimp, but people think she's nicer and warmer than they did before. I tell you, everybody I know that knows her says a lot of politicians we meet, and some people who hold elected office in the state of New York, okay? As soon as the cameras go off, they are a royal piece of you-know-what. She was always the opposite. And everybody, you talk to staff and everybody, they would walk through a wall for her, still to this day. And I know people that she goes out of her way to help in public office, and she doesn't seek the limelight, which is a rarity. I just think she's built up a lot of equity with a lot of people, and not just in the Democratic Party the last decade.
She has built up equity. She, in all likelihood, is definitely the Democratic nominee for president in 2016. I frankly believe that she was always going to run. Even when folks said, she was done with politics before she became Secretary of State, knowing her publicly and privately as I have for a number of years, I felt that she was always going to be a candidate. And in all likelihood, unless the Republicans can come up with somebody very good, she's probably the next president of the United States.
Well, the polls suggest, Andrew, that she'd be the prohibitive favorite right now, and a lot of people wouldn't get in, as Azi said here.
She'd be the favorite for the nomination, for the Democratic nomination.
Well, maybe somebody beat her head up.
I don't argue that point. I think she is the prohibitive front runner for the nomination if she decides to run.
And why do you think her standing now? I think she's a more popular Democrat than the president. I think she's a more popular Democrat than even her husband.
But the only reason she's more popular than the president is because she's not the president. Again, it's not that I don't like Hillary Clinton. I do. I respect her. I would be jumping for joy if she got nominated for the Supreme Court. I think she's highly problematic for the Democratic Party as the nominee. I don't think
in what shape or form?
Because you forget how incredibly unpopular the Clintons were when Bill Clinton was in the White House, especially among independents and among Republicans.
But is this the same Bill Clinton that when he left office and the economy was booming and folks wanted him to come back? Is that same Bill Clinton?
The same Bill Clinton who rescued this president in his convention?
In hindsight, yes. He looks much better in the rearview mirror.
Andrew, the Clintons were collated at some point to everything that was wrong, the toxic nature and stuff. I'm only saying people saw for the last 4 years the Obama administration. And don't tell me you don't run the Democrats who will always have regret that they voted for the wrong person in the primary. And I'm telling you, to this point,
as we just established, with I think she'll win the nomination, the problem here isn't with Democrats.
I think it's a different time.
I think we're incredibly lucky that we had 8 years of George Bush to remind us why we loved Bill Clinton. And so that was very, very helpful. And I think that Hillary is so strong going into 2016 that I can't imagine a serious primary candidate running against her. And I don't know. I'm looking at the bench of Republican people like Bobby Jindal. These guys are such lightweights.
If I may, we had 8 years of Bill Clinton we had 8 years of Bill Clinton to remind us how much we love George Bush, too.
Okay. And on that one, we will take a break. When we come back, we asked if you can better impact the political process from the sidelines or from the inside. One senator at least thinks, I'd rather not be in the Senate than outside. We'll talk about that and talk at the table after this.